Every few years, we face another economic crisis and scramble for solutions. But what if I told you that civilizations 4,000 years ago had playbooks for handling economic collapse that we've completely forgotten? Today, we're uncovering how ancient empires managed inflation, debt crises, and resource shortages, and why their solutions might be more relevant than ever. From Mesopotamia to Rome, from Egypt to China, ancient civilizations faced the same economic demons we do today. The difference? They had centuries to perfect their responses. Before we dive into the financial mysteries of the ancient world, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any content. Picture Babylon around 1750 BCE. Farmers are drowning in debt. Crop failures have devastated harvests. Interest rates, often 33% annually, are crushing families. Society is on the brink of collapse. Sound familiar? Enter the Mizraim royal debt amnesties. Mesopotamian kings would periodically declare all private debts null and void. Not just reduced, canceled, erased, gone. Here's how it worked. When a new king took the throne or during times of crisis, he'd issue a royal decree. Agricultural debts forgiven, land seized for debt returned, citizens sold into slavery for debt freed and sent home. This wasn't charity, it was survival economics. Mesopotamian rulers understood something crucial. When too many farmers lose their land and become debt slaves, you lose your tax base and your military. No farmers equals no food equals no army equals no empire. The temple economy played a key role too. Temples acted as redistribution centers, storing surplus grain during good years and distributing it during droughts. This created a buffer against economic shocks that kept society stable for millennia. Before you think this is ancient history, consider student loan forgiveness, mortgage relief programs, bankruptcy laws. We're still wrestling with the same question. When does debt become economically destructive rather than productive? Ancient Egypt faced a unique economic vulnerability. Everything depended on the Nile's annual flood. Too little water? Famine. Too much? Catastrophic flooding. The entire economy could collapse in a single season. Egypt's solution was the world's first centralized resource management system. During the 7 good years, Pharaoh's administrators collected 20% of all grain harvests, not as a tax, but as insurance. This grain went into massive state-controlled granaries scattered throughout the kingdom. The biblical story of Joseph isn't just mythology. It reflects real Egyptian economic policy. Archaeological evidence shows enormous granary complexes that could store grain for 7 to 10 years without spoilage. Here's the genius. During lean years, the state would distribute this stored grain at controlled prices, or even free, to prevent starvation. This accomplished 3 things. First, it prevented famine deaths and maintained population stability. Second, it stopped grain price speculation. Merchants couldn't hoard and price gouge during shortages. Third, it reinforced Pharaoh's legitimacy as the divine provider. This system allowed Egypt to maintain economic stability for over 3,000 years, longer than any modern nation has existed. The centralized granary system was so successful that it became the model for later empires, including Rome and China. Rome gives us a masterclass in how economic crisis management can backfire spectacularly. By the 3rd century CE, the Roman Empire faced hyperinflation that makes modern economies look stable. Here's what happened. The silver denarius, Rome's standard coin, started at nearly pure silver under Augustus. By 270 CE, it contained just 5% silver. The other 95%? Cheap bronze with a silver wash. Why? Military expenses. Endless wars on multiple frontiers required constant payment to legions. Rather than raise taxes and risk rebellion, emperors simply debased the currency. Print more money, they thought. Problem solved. Except it wasn't. Merchants weren't stupid. As coins lost silver content, they raised prices proportionally. A measure of wheat that cost 2 denarii in 200 CE cost over 200 denarii by 301 CE. That's 10,000%. Inflation in a century. Emperor Diocletian's response? The Edict on Maximum Prices in 301 CE, a massive price control decree covering over 1,000 goods and services. Sell bread above the maximum? Death penalty. Charge too much for a haircut? Death penalty. It failed completely. Why? Because you can't legislate away economic reality. Merchants simply stopped selling goods at official prices. Black markets exploded. Goods disappeared from public markets. The edict was abandoned within years. Rome also managed crises through the annona, free grain distributions to Roman citizens. At its peak, this fed 200,000 people daily. It prevented riots and maintained political stability, but it created dependency and drained the treasury. The lesson? Short-term crisis management without addressing root causes just delays collapse. While Rome was collapsing, China was perfecting economic crisis management. The Han Dynasty's ever-normal granary system, established around 54 BCE, was remarkably sophisticated. Government officials would buy grain when prices were low, supporting farmers during abundant harvests. Then they'd sell when prices spiked, stabilizing markets during shortages. This wasn't just charity, it was active market regulation to prevent boom-bust cycles. Chinese administrators went further. They regulated salt and iron production, controlled currency minting, and maintained detailed economic records across the empire. This bureaucratic approach allowed China to weather crises that would have toppled other civilizations. The key difference from Rome? Chinese crisis management was preventative, not reactive. They built systems during good times to handle bad times. This approach was rooted in Confucian philosophy. The emperor's legitimacy, a mandate of heaven, depended on maintaining prosperity. Economic crisis meant the emperor had lost heaven's favor. This created powerful incentives for proactive economic management. So what patterns emerge from 4,000 years of ancient crisis management? First, state intervention works, but only temporarily. Debt forgiveness, price controls, grain distribution, all effective in the short term. But without addressing underlying causes, crises return. Second, resource buffers are essential. Egypt's granaries, China's ever-normal system, both created cushions against shocks. Modern economies with no reserves face harder crashes. Third, currency debasement is a trap. Rome proved that printing money to solve problems creates worse problems. Yet we're still tempted by the same solution. Fourth, legitimacy depends on prosperity. Every ancient ruler knew economic collapse means political collapse. That hasn't changed. Today's central banks, strategic reserves, stimulus packages, and debt relief programs were using the same tools ancient civilizations developed. The question is, are we learning from their successes or repeating their mistakes? What do you think? Are modern governments better at handling economic crisis than ancient empires? Or we just repeating the same cycles with fancier names? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into how historical financial systems shaped our modern world, subscribe to this channel. Thanks for uncovering this financial mystery with me. Until next time, keep questioning the systems we take for granted.